for others. So I'm looking not at average or logical, reasonable things, but I'm looking at the weak link in the chain from the viewpoint of, is this going to disturb someone? So I wanted you to tell me whether that's, in your viewpoint, reasonable, or you think I should stick with some sort of a more balanced statistical average.
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. You've got the relative case where you say what the background is, and then you look at for what the project is going to do relative to that. That's the DEC guideline approach. Then you can also just look at what are the sound levels going to be for the project, forgetting about the background or any of it. And that's where we see the maximum level is 42. And that's, you know, down in the low end where there's very few complaints at that kind of level, irrespective of whatever the background was. All the sites in that example probably have similar background levels.
You do kind of advocate sticking with the New York State DEC standard of an increase of 6 dBA or 5 dBA? Well,
we look at that because we're in New York and we have to give consideration to that. But in our report, we don't say that that's the threshold where nobody's going to be disturbed. I don't believe it. That's generally where you would expect very few complaints beyond that threshold. But turbine noise has a character to it that makes it more audible than other noises. So it tends to be more disturbing. So I'm not saying the 6 dBA threshold thing is the end where there's not going to be any disturbance beyond that. The turbines are going to be audible beyond that threshold. And there's likely to be complaints. Unless there's nobody living here, there's probably going to be some complaint.
You say there are no health issues?
No, I really don't see any evidence for that. And all of those doctors that looked into all the literature and so on, like that vibroacoustic disease, VAD, that's predicated on the idea that there's tremendous levels of low-frequency noise coming from the turbines. If you got some disease from that, then I would have problems from driving in my car where huge levels of low-frequency noise, but nobody ever complains about health effects from riding in a car. So, no, I don't. I think that's...
I want to go off one of Brooks's questions. Turbines go up. This was your model. What's your recommendation for post-construction study of sound?
Well, what we typically do is measure at probably 10 positions, 10 houses or other points of interest where the maximum sound levels are predicted by the pre-construction model. And I think the best technique for that is just to measure over 2-3 weeks and to capture a number of different wind conditions, daytime conditions, nighttime conditions, and then find out what the project is actually doing. And what we found is it's agreeing with the predictions very well. So we don't expect it to be substantially different.
Brooks, do you have more questions?
I just wanted to ask your assessment about, once this goes up, you know, it's unending. You don't stop it once it's up. So
right.
I wanted your assessment of the weak point of having something that goes on all the time that bothers some people. And if you could examine that finally, because I'm not challenging you, I'm not arguing you, it's not a repartee, but I'm reading lots of things about people who say it really is upsetting to them. They're very upset.
I know, and I've talked to the people at all of these sites. We have to go to those people's houses and talk to them and set up monitors. Yeah, people are very upset. And like I said, sometimes the next door neighbor is not bothered at all. It's an individual thing.
So you think it's a totally subjective thing?
I think it goes way beyond what the sound level actually is. There's a lot of it that goes way beyond what you can measure with the sound level.
Okay, thank you very much.
Herbert?
Yeah, you've apparently done studies for projects of which at least 50 have been approved, have been successful.
We've worked on 59 projects. I don't know which ones have been approved. I don't know what the number is, the number of them have.
Okay, I got that in the letter that was sent to us. My question is this, you gave us 5 examples of projects where you had complaints and so forth. Is that representative of the total?
Yeah, we've been able to test at 8 completed projects, and those 5 are similar in nature to this project. The other 3 are the projects isolated, and it's not really that complicated.
When you say similar, are these similar in topography?
Yeah. Right, it's rural farm country. The turbines are put on large parcels of land. The residences are uniformly distributed over the project area, and the turbines are just kind of randomly placed, to the number of 80 to 100 units mixed together with houses. So some houses are surrounded by turbines, some houses are kind of off to the side of the project. Similar.
And they're roughly 2,000 feet from the turbines?
The number of houses that I used as a basis to figure out what the percentage is was the houses that were within 2,000 feet. And there was plenty more houses that were further out, but I'm not counting those.
Any more? Beth?
In the projects in New York that you looked at, do you know any of them that have that, most of them that I'm aware of have that 50 dBA? Are there any projects in New York with less than 50?
Of the ones that have been built, I think they were all subject to a 50 limit.
So 45, 42, that would be the most conservative in New York that you're aware of? Or
Yeah, it would be probably the lowest predicted sound levels of the projects in New York, apart from the one that's out in it's in an isolated rural area. Nobody lives there. So the nearest house, the level is way down.
where else have you done projects?
In Washington State, in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Texas, Oklahoma, West Virginia, everywhere there's wind.
Andy?
There's wind, is that what you said?
There's no wind in my state, so I don't have any clue.
George? Karen? The presentation tonight is available, Brian?
Yes.
Right, so could you get sufficient copies for the planning board, the committee, and the town board by our next planning board meeting?
Yes, I could.
Does anybody have any additional questions?
And one more.
Yes.
There's another study for the Cape Hudson area by acoustical expert Schomer, and I wondered if you read his study. And he also disagrees with you and happens to agree with Katamatoshi. So I'm wondering what if you have a rebuttal to that report as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot about that. He was brought in to evaluate our work, and at the time he did his analysis, the summer results for the BP project were published, but not the winter survey results. So he looked at our summer results, which in the Acciona kit we just threw them out. But he looked at our summer results and said, well, those levels are real high, I'm gonna go out and show them how it's done